dharana, dhyana, etc., is recommended for less intelligent persons who have no better knowledge. But one who has tasted the beauty of the Supreme Lord Krishna in the course of his advancement in Krishna consciousness no longer has a taste for dead material things. Therefore, restrictions are there for less intelligent neophytes in the spiritual advancement of life. But such restrictions are only good until one actually has a taste for Krishna consciousness. When one is actually Krishna conscious, he automatically loses his taste for pale things. So I actually wanted to create a presentation on this verse, well, on this topic, which I will do later, but I didn't have so much time. I'm preparing to take a short trip to Denver for 2 weeks. So it's kind of a lot to prepare for that. But I wanted to talk about something I've been thinking about recently, which is basically, how does one give up bad habits, or how does one give up habits that they want to give up, right? Let's say you want to stop cussing, or you want to stop drinking, or you want to stop going on shopping sprees, or whatever. You want to stop certain things, right? We all may have that sort of introspective nature where we think, oh, this might be good to stop, or this might be good to decrease in my life. Right? No? Everybody's pretty happy with where they're at? No? I mean, we should be happy with where we're at, in the sense, that's what I'm talking about, but we should be happy with where we're at, in the sense that, we're like not comfortable, but we're okay with where we are, but we know that we should improve, right? So that's important to feel that way, that, okay, I'm where I'm at, which is, you can't escape it. You can't deny it. You can't deny what habits you have and what habits, you know that you want to give up, or what habits you think are good for you to continue with. We're where we are. We're where we are spiritually. So there's no use of denying it. If you deny it, then you always feel this, uncomfortable feeling with yourself, right? So one of my teachers says, one of my mentors, whenever he would talk to one of his mentors, which is the process of how to receive knowledge, he would always ask, how are you feeling on your path of being genuine? It's a good meditation. How are you feeling on your path of feeling genuine? Which means that basically, how are you doing with being honest with yourself and with others? It's a really nice meditation, something to really think about. Because we tend to have, well, it's interesting. The mind tends to have expectations of how we should be, which is better. So we might have some conception that we're better than what we are now. And then we may have some thoughts or some conception of how we're falling short, right? How we're falling short of whatever, falling short in spiritual life, falling short in our career or our relationships, etc. Or we may have expectations like, oh yeah, I'm actually really good at this, but we may not be very good at that, right? So we have this kind of duality in our false ego. So anyway, coming back to this, so that's a good meditation. Something to think about is, how are you feeling on your path of being genuine? So, and the reason why I'm bringing this up is because it can be some phenomenon is there in any religious circle, where you have people that, you have like a spectrum of people that are involved in the church or in the temple or in the community. They're like, seeming to be very involved in it. They're shaving their head, they're wearing the cloth, they're doing a lot of things that are signifying how committed they are. And then there's a spectrum, you could say, that there is verse coming from that to somebody who's not practicing at all, right? So there's some spectrum. So then it's like, okay, where do we fall in that spectrum? And so some people that are maybe in the middle of the spectrum, they're looking up to the people that are on the one of the polar sides, which is the people that are so involved, and they're feeling embarrassed because they're not there. They're feeling embarrassed because they're not meeting some expectation of what you should be like to do this thing, to be at this church, to be at this temple. It's a natural phenomenon, right? Have you observed that in people and communities, right? So it's an interesting dynamic. And then it's like, how do you make everybody feel encouraged to just be themselves and also to just improve with where they are? And it may be that externally, the people on this side of the spectrum where they're doing everything seemingly, they're doing everything externally that is for the practice or for the religion, the philosophy or whatever, even a sport, right? They're doing everything externally that you can observe, but it doesn't necessarily mean that internally they're pure. Somebody who can be seemingly in the middle can actually be more pure in their practice or intention than somebody who's doing all the external things. And we see that some people do external things simply to get a position or to get prestige or whatever, So this relates to the verse because when we think about our own self on this path of honesty, this is basically the solution. This principle is the solution to all of our problems in spiritual life, all of our habits that we want to give up. This is basically the essence of it, which is that we're not on the transcendental platform, and therefore we have attraction to this material world. See, the part of this verse is, though the embodied soul may be restricted from sense enjoyment, the taste for sense objects remains. So what that means is, we're the embodied soul. The soul is in the body, and we have the physical body here, which has urges through the senses to interact with the world. And that's how we receive some sort of happiness or some sort of pleasure, right, from this world. It's only due to this body and mind that we have. So, or it's only interacted with the body and mind. So even if one is restricted from enjoying the sense objects or enjoying this world, still that taste remains there. Still the taste is active, and you can have the urge and you can fulfill the desire. You could fulfill the enjoyment with the body, even if you try to restrict it. So it's like like Prabhupada gives the example, the patient, so somebody who's sick, has it ever happened to you? You're sick and you have to, that there's like a particular diet you should have. Like, let's say you get a cold or something, and probably the best thing is just to maybe fast, eat very light fruits and things like that, because if you eat the heavy things, then you tend to revert back into being more sick, and more mucus comes or whatever. So you're trying to restrict yourself, but still the taste is there. And then when you eat something, like let's say you're sick, so you're like, okay, pizza is served for lunch. So, well, I don't want to eat pizza because it's going to really mess me up, right? But the taste is still there. And if you eat the pizza, you'll enjoy the pizza, right? But the result of it will not actually be very helpful for your health. So the taste for the the pizza or the taste for the sense object is always going to be there when you have a material body. It's just the nature of this world. So even if you restrict yourself, still the taste is there. But if you cease that, eating that pizza by experience a higher taste, you're fixed in consciousness. In that example, the higher taste would just be your prolonged health, right? So you know that eating this pizza is not going to be good for you. So you cease that engagement, and then the result of it is that you get the higher taste of getting well again. So in this case, in spiritual life, we have the material body, and there's certain activities which are given by the Vedas and Krishna that you should avoid because it's going to be good for you ultimately. And even though those sense objects, the taste still remains, if you get a higher taste, then you'll be focused. You'll be peaceful. You'll be able to withstand any urges that come, because it's like you just automatically, it may come in the mind and then automatically just push it aside. Why? Because I'm already experiencing something better. So with like a bad habit, and this came up because one of my friends that was talking to me about how they wanted to give up smoking marijuana because they understood it's not good for my health, and also I'm trying to practice Krishna consciousness. So, and that's one of the it's one of the principles that we follow is not to intoxicate. So this person's very sincere, but also feeling some little bit of embarrassment, maybe that I want to give this up, but it's very difficult. It's been a habit for many years, and so there might be some sort of feeling like, well, I'm on this side of this, I'm in the middle here, but I'm looking towards this expectation, and now I'm feeling some embarrassment. So then it's actually a little bit more counterproductive for giving up that habit, actually. So this applies to, as I mentioned, this applies to anything you want to give up, but because this is like a real life example that's been in my mind, I'm talking about this particular thing. And I had this problem too, or issue, when I first came to Krishna consciousness. And my solution, my natural solution is to say, well, if you just chant 16 rounds, you actually don't have to worry about it, really. And it's true. It was true for me. That's really the thing that just washed away a lot of bad habits. And why was that? Because you experience life more on the transcendental platform. Your consciousness is more merged into transcendence, or into your real spiritual self. When you chant 16 rounds, it's something which is given by the great acharyas, the great teachers. They're passing it down so that those blessings, or that shakti, or that we call that energy, that spiritual potency, is coming down through that instruction. And then when you actually fulfill it, you get the result of carrying out the instruction, which is that you feel this transcendental peace. So my that was my initial thought was, hey, if you just chant 16 rounds, it'll be okay. But this person isn't ready to do that. They're chanting 4 rounds. So, okay, that's fine. So they could probably chant 16. Doesn't take so much time. But what I'm just mentioning is that when we experience this higher taste, then everything else that is material gradually washes away, but it may take time. So yeah, you might even chant 16 rounds, and then you're not able to give up something. You're thinking, what the heck? Why am I I am not giving up this thought, these thoughts, or why am I not giving up this habit, this activity, this behavior? Well, the reason is because we're conditioned, which means we have patterns that are influencing us from previous activity, previous behavior, or previous lives as well. So we may be strongly conditioned in a certain way, strongly habituated to do things. So it's a gradual process. So it takes time to give things up. But gradually you will if you continue living a God-conscious life. And chanting Hare Krishna is the main method that we use in Krishna consciousness to get this higher taste. Of course, there's so many things too. There's a whole science. So giving up a bad habit is there's a whole science. Chanting, associating with people that are giving these habits up or have already given them up, being around them, having that support. And also it's a matter of knowledge too, because knowledge helps you adjust your mind when urges of the body come. See, the higher taste is not always going to be there, actually. It's not like because we read this and now we're thinking about it and we chant or whatever, we're always going to have a higher taste. You know, we're always going to be in transcendental consciousness and we just give up everything, all the material things, and wash away in a few seconds. It's not how it works generally. For some souls, it works like that, but they're very rare. But generally, we have those moments where you're chanting or you're taking prasadam or you're with devotees or whatever. You may have these moments where you just feel so transcendentally satisfied. And then you're thinking, I want to do this forever, or I want this forever, or I want to serve God forever. I want to serve Krishna forever. Has anybody had those moments? You know, maybe you teared up, your heart just expanded, or whatever. There's these certain moments that we get. And that feeling comes like, wow, this is it. I want this forever. But then we drop back down. Like, oh no, I'm normal again. What happened? I wanted that forever. Or we're thinking, I want to serve you forever, Krishna. I'll always chant your names. And then, an hour later, we're struggling to chant a round of japa. Something. So, yeah, you can always think back to this verse. Okay, I'm not able to give up listening to this music. Okay. So we have to be satisfied. This is where I'm at, This is where I'm at. And that's okay. It's okay to be there. We're in the shower. We're getting purified. The whole idea is to just keep on with the process. And chanting. Keep chanting, keep associating, etc. And gradually these things will become washed away. So knowledge is there so that we can reinforce our understanding of activities that we should do and should not do that are in our self-interest. And then also, I just thought of the other one. Prayer, right? Depending on Krishna is a very important one. Because how can we really do any of this? How could we really cross over our material conditioning? How can we give up all these bad habits? It's really only by the grace of Krishna, the grace of God. It's the only way it's possible. I mean, we may have tried on our own, but we may be able to give up something with our own effort, with our determination, our focus, our intelligence. We may be able to give it up, but that's just one thing. What about a few other things that you want to give up? A few other things that you want to adjust? But if you depend on God, then he actually can take care of unlimited things at once. Just think, God or Krishna is orchestrating all of the movement of the atoms in this material world, right? This electricity coming in this building, yeah, okay, we manufacture some conduits, and we harnessed the energy from the sun or the water or whatever. But ultimately, this is created by God. It's created by Krishna, who gave us the intelligence to do it, right? Who gave us the materials. We had to manufacture the materials from nature. Where does nature come from? Right. So Krishna can do unlimited things at one time. He's omnipotent, omnipresent, omniscient. So how could he not take care of all of those things that you would like to give up in your heart? He can do it. He can do it in 1 second, actually. But it's like a parent, though, that has a child, and the child wants to hold on to certain things, wants to continue certain behaviors. And even though the child may say, I don't want to do it anymore right now, still maybe like an hour later, the child is back to doing that thing, right? So that's like us. We have those moments. Yes, this is it. I want to just serve God. I want to serve Krishna my whole life. Just get rid of all of it, please. But then some moments later, we're right back to normal, back to where we were or where we are. So it's a gradual process. That's my point. So when there's a gradual process of purification, then no matter where you are in the spectrum, you're still getting clean. And I've told this analogy before. It's like you're all muddy from playing outside in the mud. Maybe you were gardening or something, and you got all dirty, and now you're rinsing yourself off with the hose. It doesn't really matter that somebody has mud up to their knees and someone has mud up to their neck, right? In the sense of, okay, they're going to get clean eventually, just a matter of time. So there's no need to compare ourselves to that person who has, oh, wow, he's dirty up to the neck. She's dirty up to the neck. I'm better because I'm only dirty up to the knees. Like, yeah, I'll get cleaner faster, most likely, but still the person's going to get clean as well eventually. So, so one has to be satisfied with where they are, honest, and try to improve with where they are and feel comfortable with that. And we should all feel supportive of each other who are in that position, in any position of life. Even the person who is forgetting God at every moment and not trying to serve God, still they're part and parcel. They're souls just like us that are getting clean still, because we're in the material world, which is a place where it's forcing you to get clean. But some people are on the more direct path. Some people are more on indirect path. And the indirect path is you're forgetful of God, but at every step you try to advance in the material world, you get kicked around by the material nature. So much happiness, so much distress, so much attachment, like that. Even the atheists, they see God ultimately at the time of death, because death comes in the form of, God comes in the form of death for atheists. Why? Because one is fearful at the time of death, especially you don't know where you're going. You don't know what's going to happen next. You don't know if you're going to exist or not. You have to be in anxiety. So for the devotee, they're actually, Krishna gives them fearlessness during this time, during that most crucial time of your life where you're actually leaving this world alone. Krishna gives protection and fearlessness so that you're actually peaceful. You know that you're going, it's not just a theoretical thing because you've practiced and you've felt that realization, you felt the higher taste. So now you know that, okay, I'm going to go, Krishna's going to send me somewhere, which is going to be helpful for me to keep advancing in spiritual life. So prayer helps too. It may be one of the most important things to do because we cannot do so much on our own. And so when we reflect, like, okay, I want to give up this particular habit. When we reflect on this verse, then we can see how do I try to increase my higher taste? Because I may not be really focusing enough on spiritual activity. And therefore the higher taste is covered, or there's just too much time in between. I feel the higher taste and not. So in Krishna consciousness, the principles of Bhakti Yoga that are prescribed, they're all a means to help you get the result where your material situation is more at a balanced way, is more balanced. It's not so much like intense happiness, intense distress, but it's more balanced. So giving up things like, in this case, in this example, intoxication, it doesn't, it helps you be more equipoised in your health and your psychological well-being, because when you have that sort of experience, you may have a very high experience and then you come down. It's just like when you get drunk, right? You get drunk and it's like, yeah, having fun, so much fun. But then, you have to have that hangover. So it just balances out. So when you give up these things, though, you're just like riding the middle wave and your mind is settled versus like, oh. But if you're just in the middle, okay, this is nice. Calm waters, I'm just going through. Then you can actually spend more energy focusing on spiritual activities. So we're talking about how to feel comfortable in a spiritual practice or religious practice that has very high ideals, but we're falling short of acting on the ideals all the time, right? It's a natural phenomenon. So Krishna consciousness has, you could say objectively, has the highest ideals. Give up all your material desires, just serve God, serve Krishna, be transcendently situated, give up sense gratification in all forms. It's completely revolutionary to the momentum of our society, or what we are raised in, what we're conditioned to become as Americans, and even just any kind of nationality these days. We're being projected to be basically enjoyers of the material world, essentially. And now Krishna consciousness or different religious philosophies or spiritual philosophies are saying, give these up, give up this idea and move towards your spiritual life. So in Krishna consciousness, yes, give up all forms of sense gratification, 24/7, serve Krishna with all your heart, and that's the only way you'll become happy. It's true, but it's a high ideal to work towards, and that's the whole idea. We are working towards it. So yeah, I've been practicing Krishna consciousness for almost 9 years. I was a monk for 8 years, and one could say, wow, they really were on that other side of the spectrum. But no, well, yeah, in one sense, externally look like that, but internally, I'm going through the same things that everybody else goes through. You know, I got anger in my heart. I have envy. I have lust. I have greed. All these. We have made or others have made. So, so we have to be careful and respectful of wherever people are at in their spiritual life. And it could be that somebody is in 60% self-realized eternally, right? That's their position, and they've advanced 60%. They're never going to drop down lower than that. But they're also doing all these sorts of bad habits, but they're 60%, whereas I'm only 40% and I'm not doing those habits. Isn't that interesting? So one has to have this vision to actually appreciate others and encourage each other and support each other in our practice, in our spiritual lives. And in that way, we'll help decrease this phenomenon where we feel like we're not worthy of, a devotional sangha. We're not worthy of being in a devotional community because I've got this habit, got that habit, like sometimes people come to the temple and, there's a certain environment, right? There's like a certain atmosphere that is sort of like and you go to any atmosphere and there's sort of norms. There's like social norms, right? So you may have noticed like, we don't really cuss here, right? So like you might have the habit of cussing outside of the temple you may have the habit, but you don't do it here. So you kind of feel like, it's like you feel that sort of tension internally. But it's not like if you do cuss, it's not like, you're banned from the temple or whatever. It's just some social dynamic. And it's also just helpful not to cuss, but I'm just making the point that that everybody should be able to feel free to express themselves with where they're at. And in a devotional community, we want to just encourage people to advance. Just keep advancing in devotional life. And that's okay with where you are. Keep coming around, keep chanting, keep practicing, keep living. And however much we can support, as in the devotional sangha, in the community, however we can support each other or facilitate each other's advancement, then we want to just focus on that. That's the bigger picture. So if there's habits you want to give up, reflect on this verse and try to move more towards getting a higher taste. And how do we get that? Simply by engaging in Krishna consciousness. There's so many things you could do in Krishna consciousness. It's completely unlimited. Chanting. First, the main things we do is chanting, dancing, and feasting, right? You may not like to chant. You may not like to dance. You may not like to feast so much. Well, that's okay. We have so many other things. And there's so many other things in Krishna consciousness you can do. You can garden, you can study, you could clean. You can be some sort of, you can manage things. You could, whatever, it's unlimited things. You can do practically any material duty and connect it to an activity in Krishna consciousness, more or less, like any work or any kind of skill. Like you're a musician, you could do that for Krishna. You can do art for Krishna. There's just unlimited things. So to the degree so we understand, to the degree we have a higher taste, all those bad habits will be given up. So if I'm having some bad habit, it means I don't have enough higher taste to be fixed in consciousness, right? Fixed in consciousness means completely just focused, absorbed in spiritual activity and advancing towards the ultimate goal of life, which is to become self-realized or God-realized. And then having this higher taste, we will not feel so much the pulls of the taste for sense objects, trying to enjoy this world, materially speaking, devoid of service to God or to Krishna. Okay. Are there any questions or reflections or comments? It's kind of a personal topic, but if you would like to ask a question. I think Krishnendu's hand was up first. So be who you are. That's a lesson for the day.
Hare Krishna. Mentioning a lot about these bad habits that we carry as we're endeavoring to something higher, that, that we should be satisfied with where we're at while we're advancing. How can we be satisfied, when we're taking up this process and, more of this bad habits become more revealed, and it becomes sometimes challenging because we struggle. So how can we stay, enthusiastic to go forward, but at the same time, accept this is where I'm at?
Yeah. Yeah, it's an intricate dynamic for sure. It really comes down to just being honest, really. It's like I said, we have some expectation of what we should be like, maybe, but it's just maybe not where we are. So if we're honest with where we are, we're just comfortable, meaning like, hey, this is who I am. This is who I am, where I'm at. And I think it's a matter of just accepting that internally and expressing yourself. And then knowing that I want to improve, knowing that I want to improve and I'm shooting towards the ideal, but it's going to take time. I mean, to accept that, it takes a lot of inner work. It takes a lot of inner work for you. Reflect yourself, give yourself some forgiveness, some compassion. It's maybe easy for some of us to feel more compassion for others. It may be more easy, but we may lack compassion for ourselves, So everybody kind of, if you try too much to do things artificially, eventually what happens naturally is that you always just find yourself in your state where you really are. Eventually, you just like move there, and there's no escaping it. It's because why? Because that's who you are. That's your truth. And so, so I really have been resonating with this idea of this meditation of how are you doing on your path of being genuine. because eventually you'll get there. Even if you have these high expectations and you're like trying to act on that platform, or you have these low expectations and you're falling short, or you're falling short because you're just focused too much on your low expectations, eventually you even out, you even find your ground. So it just takes a lot of inner work. And you just want to get to that place where like, it's like you're comfortable, but also you're a little uncomfortable too at the same time. Like you're thinking, okay, this is where I'm at, and I have these desires, and I may need to fulfill some of these materially, but I know that I'm aiming towards full devotional service. I'm aiming towards giving these things up. And of course, there'll be this simultaneous, like, if you want to improve on something, that means that you're in some way, you're not really satisfied fully with where you are, right? Or with what you're doing. You have an idea that you want to get to another place, or you want to get to a higher level of achievement. If you were just completely satisfied with where you are, then you may not necessarily need to think of improving, right? But there's some sort of idea like, okay, I want to improve in this and that category, especially when we're just dealing with personal development. It's like a really subtle point. The process of Krishna consciousness really helps. Chanting, really helps regulating the mind, senses. It really helps to have that, to do those things so that we can have that introspection, we can have that detachment, because that's what it requires too. It requires some detachment, some level of detachment from our situation. If we're a little detached from our conditioning, then it won't be such a big deal because we're not so identified with the condition we're in. It's like, this is a condition that I find myself in as a soul, but I am actually really pure as a soul. But I'm in this condition right now, and it's just a matter of time until I'm out of the condition. So it requires this sort of a detachment as well, which can be achieved by devotional service. Is that helpful? Okay. Can talk more about this on and on and on. It's a very important topic to talk about and to think about. Okay, Jaikeshwa, did somebody else have something? Anyone other than someone who lives here? No? Okay. Jaikeshwa? Okay. What's your name? Kevin. Nice to meet you, Kevin. I'm KB.
So do you think there's ever a time that you feel stuck where you are, but maybe that's where Krishna wants you to be?
That is definitely an experience that one can have. Yeah. Like you feel, but it's not necessarily that you're not making progress, but that you feel like that Krishna may just put some roadblock for you so that you have to deal with that. So an example may be like in let's say you're able to give up something very easily, like quickly. But it may come back later. That habit may come back later. So then you're a little disillusioned. You're thinking, hey, I thought I gave that up, and then it just sticks around. So then you feel like, man, I'm regressing. But actually, you're not necessarily regressing. It's just that was a deep thing. That was a deep attachment. And so you could see as there's this roadblock is like bringing me to a halt, But Prabhupada says, Srila Prabhupada, our founder, who's given us this process, Krishna consciousness, like for today, is for modern day. He said that simply having the knowledge that this is helpful to give up, that actually you're making progress from that alone, just by thinking about it. Because if you're not thinking about it, then you might be thinking, hey, there's this roadblock here, what to do. I'm just going to stick around here, just continue with it. Doesn't matter. Okay. You might not have any idea about you may not even know there's a roadblock there. But if you have the idea, okay, there's this roadblock here in my path. And if it comes in the case of a bad habit, just by knowing that this is something good to give up, then you're making progress. So you're always making progress. But yes, Krishna may throw some roadblocks for you. I mean, he does for sure. But that's helpful for us. Does that make sense?
So it's kind of like, it's not necessarily the why you should give something up, it's the how.
What was that?
It's not necessarily like why you should give something up, it's how you should give it up.
Why you should give it up versus how?
Yeah, it's like why, but it's the how that you have to figure out.
Yeah, and that may look different for different people, how to do it. Of course, the principle ultimately is to connect yourself with Krishna, and eventually we'll give it up, or that's really the solution to that problem and all problems, really. It's being God conscious. But Haribo. Yeah, so I don't think I have any more thoughts about it. That's helpful. Sometimes people experience a roadblock for a few years. There's some examples of people that are they join a religious practice, right? Or Krishna consciousness, and they make a lot of progress, and then they go away, and they just give it all up for some time. So you can say, okay, that's a roadblock. But then, because they have that knowledge and they give up God, they just do material life, but material nature runs its course. And sometimes they come back because the roadblock somehow or other, they manage to, or material nature was hitting them so hard out there that they were forced to come back and make progress again on the path. But sometimes that happens for a few decades. There's some stories like that. Sometimes people leave and then they don't reawaken their spiritual life until they're on, basically about to leave this world. But even in that ending moments, because they made progress, still they're able to focus on Krishna. So we can't understand actually how much benefit we're getting by doing these practices, by doing spiritual practices. We can't actually fathom it. It's unfathomable. We don't know what the result's going to be of it, really. We have limited vision. So we're waiting for Archie, but did Roshan Dave come? Or is Materna? Okay. Materna, are we ready? Did he say yeah? Okay. Thank you very much for coming, everybody, and hearing me go on and on about this topic. Hopefully it was helpful and something to think about. We love you. Please keep coming and feel free to express yourself according to your honesty and capacity, and just keep trying to serve Krishna to the degree that you feel comfortable, and keep trying to improve. So we'll all stand up and go towards the front of the room for Arti. And afterwards, we'll have a wonderful dinner together. Hare Krishna.